No one is supposed to be able to hold out that long, in such a split, without something breaking. And yet, for years, everyone around him swears they never saw anything abnormal. Dennis grips the steering wheel of his city car, municipal inspector, complaint file on the seat. But what pins him there isn't the letter, it's the house in front of him. They call him Dennis Rader, compliance officer of Park City. He checks hedges that are too tall, dogs without leashes, illegal sheds. He gets out of the car, taps his notebook, looks at the front door. His hand brushes mechanically against the tape measure on his belt. He knows this kind of facade. He knows all too well the exact feeling of a doorknob giving way. On his desk, he has placed 3 things that should never have ended up side by side. A Lutheran church bulletin, a slightly crumpled street map of Wichita, and a newspaper clipping dated January 15, 1974. The Otero family, strangled in their home in a quiet suburb. When this story broke, Dennis was already living here, in Kansas. Officially, he was a newlywed, model employee, diligent student. Unofficially, something had already slipped. This date he can't chase away is the moment when a monstrous acronym will soon emerge. 3 letters that don't exist yet, but that he already carries within him. At first, Dennis believes in a simple explanation. He tells himself that it all comes from his childhood, an accumulation of small, almost banal fractures. A father often absent, swallowed up by the factory and then by mechanics. A mother taken up with chores, the siblings, survival. Lutheran services, strictness, guilt. At school, no one hits him, no one really bullies him. He's later described as reserved, discreet, almost transparent. In his mind, he files this away like a closed case. Introverted personality, lack of attention, fantasies that drift. He tells himself his brain just slid too far along ideas of control, bondage, power. A personal failure, an intimate malfunction, nothing more. This explanation collapses in one blow when he catches himself torturing animals and savoring the memory like a secret trophy. So he moves on to a more sophisticated version of his own story. He puts the context forward. Kansas, the military bases, discipline. When he enlists in the U.S. Air Force, he suddenly finds himself plunged into a world where everything is control, procedure, hierarchy. He's sent abroad. He handles equipment, follows orders, gets used to compartmentalizing his life. Obey on the outside, brood on the inside. When he comes back, he strings together odd jobs, criminal justice studies, marriage to Paula, settling in Park City. He mentally underlines that word, criminal justice. He sees himself as a technician of the system, someone who understands the rules, the reports, the crime scenes on paper. Doubt doesn't close. In this version, he presents himself as the perfect product of an environment that encouraged everything. The love of procedure from the military, the respectable front from the church, the fascination with crime from his studies, then from his job at ADT where he enters houses to protect them. He tells himself that the monster and the man fed on the same social soil, on the same era where people didn't talk about urges, where they hid them under uniforms and forms. Then he runs into a detail he can't twist to his advantage. In this same town, with the same context, thousands of guys served, got married, studied, sold alarms, without ever preparing a hit kit to tie up strangers. What remains is a nastier explanation that he keeps to himself, buried. He wouldn't just be the product of a context, nor the victim of a past. He would be something colder, someone who understood very early that the mask of normality is a weapon, and who chose it consciously. That story cracks when his own writings betray an almost childlike need for recognition, incompatible with the image of a purely inhuman strategist. So he comes back to what he avoids admitting. Maybe there is no grand logic, no coherent mechanism, just a man who developed a taste for total control, and who spent years stubbornly building himself justifications. The wall doesn't go up in a police station. It rises in Dennis's head, long before the police suspect anyone. It all starts when he turns scouting into a real ritual. He calls it trolling. He drives around Wichita, through the same streets, the same quiet subdivisions. He spots a silhouette, a routine, a woman who always closes her shutters at the same time, a young student who always comes home alone. He files them as projects. The word neutral reassuring, gives him the impression he is managing serious work. At that point, he already has a settled life. He goes to Christ Lutheran Church, he takes part, he shakes hands, he listens to the sermons. At ADT, he installs alarm systems, puts sensors on windows he watches for too long. In the evening, he goes back to Park City, finds Paula, the TV on, the family routine. He creates hit kits that he hides. Ropes, duct tape, knives, sometimes a firearm. He folds all that calmly, like preparing tools for a job site. Time passes. The wall is the precise instant when this mental game stops being a game, and when he realizes he will no longer control anything if he crosses it. On January 15th, the Otero house becomes that point of no return. He had first targeted Julie, the mother. According to his own confession, he had not planned on the presence of the whole family. Once inside, the situation spins out of control, and he improvises. He ties up, he suffocates, he adjusts. He leaves the house behind him with 4 bodies, and something he will never be able to take back. Physically, the wall materializes a bit later, in his own living room. He watches the news, hears about the quadruple murder. In his stomach, a dull pain, like a tightening knot. It is not pure guilt, it is an icy panic. He has just discovered himself capable of doing it, capable of coming back to the table afterward, of passing the dish, of resting his hand on his wife's shoulder without shaking. From then on, everything he builds serves the same obsession, preserving this power without getting caught. He goes back to school in criminal justice, takes courses on police procedures. He listens to how fingerprints are collected, how homicide scenes are handled. He takes notes. He learns the words investigators use. Outside, the Wichita police move forward with paper files, photos, fingerprints. Inside, Dennis absorbs the logic of those who are looking for him, and he begins to adapt. The wall is also the impossibility of going back once he gets a taste for communication. When he leaves a letter in a book at the public library, describing the Otero murders with details that the press has never published, he crosses another boundary. He chooses to become a character. When he sends grotesque poems, demands a name, suggests BTK, he seals an identity he will never be able to shed. In his daily life, this leaves tiny physical traces. One day, while tightening an antenna cable on a roof for ADT, his hand slips. The metal cuts his finger deeply. Blood runs into his glove, the pain sharp and biting. He clenches his teeth, finishes the installation. What goes through his mind then is not the fear of falling. It is the brutal image of a rope pulled too tight, of skin that bruises. The wall is there. Every ordinary gesture echoes back what he does in secret. The more the years go by, the more this double life hardens. He becomes a deacon, then head of security at the church. He enforces radiant rules of moral cleanliness, while his fantasies sink into darkness. When he starts working as a compliance officer, responsible for checking that residents respect municipal codes, the loop tightens even more. He officially embodies order, regulation, conformity. What really blocks him is not the fear of being caught. It is the intimate terror of no longer existing if he stops playing the role of BTK. In his letters, you feel the wounded child screaming, "Look at me," trapped in the body of a man who strangles. The whole case freezes around this knot. A guy who no longer knows how to live without this character, but who knows that each new murder increases the risk of losing everything. Specialists agree on one point. Dennis Rader illustrates the profile of the organized serial killer. Methodical, able to compartmentalize his life beyond what is usually seen. Some profilers, however, point to an underlying fragility, an emotional immaturity that comes through in his grandiloquent letters and clumsy poems, as if he were trying more to play a role than to embody a truly superior predator. What many experts avoid admitting too bluntly is their unease in front of an embarrassing question. If a man this ordinary, this integrated, can maintain this facade for decades, how many others can still be hiding behind the smiles of a model neighbor? When Dennis puts his hand on the gear shift that morning, years after the first crimes, he is convinced of one thing. He still controls the script. Since 1991, no more murders have been officially linked to BTK. He has let time cover the crime scenes, the files settle in the archives, The investigators retire. He dissolved into his role as a rigid municipal employee, a serious churchman. In his head, he sees himself as a perfectly controlled ghost, present everywhere, identified nowhere. What he believes is true is that time and intelligence will be enough to protect him. He has even taken the luxury of reappearing. When, in 2004, an article brings up BTK's crimes in Wichita, he cannot stand being forgotten. He sends another letter, photos of Vicki Wegerly, a copy of her insurance card. He tests the police, plays with cereal boxes filled with messages, with bound dolls. He asks a question that sums up his whole illusion. Can a floppy disk be traced back to him? When he hears or reads the reassuring answer from the authorities, he believes himself smarter. He sends the disk. Just after sending it, something hangs in the air. The moment this medium leaves his hands, reality begins to gnaw at the story he told himself. The metadata of the Word file mention a first name, Dennis. They contain a reference to the Christ Lutheran Church. Suddenly, everything he thought he had compartmentalized comes together at a single point. Computer, church, civil identity. The investigators are no longer dealing with a specter, but with a man listed in registers, rosters, organizational charts. While Dennis continues his routine, the police follow him, go through his trash, obtain familial DNA via a sample linked to his daughter. In their labs, technicians compare the genetic profiles with traces left on BTK's envelopes. The match appears, implacable. Where Dennis believed his inner discipline would protect him, it is tiny traces of dried saliva that catch up with him. On the day of his arrest, he is not in a sordid lair. He is in his car, like so many days when he had people sign compliance notices. In handcuffs, he never really leaves his role. He talks, he details, he explains his projects, his acronym bind, torture, kill. In court, during his guilty plea, he lays out the murders with icy precision, as if he were reading a technical report. What collapses then is not only the image he gave to others, it is his own. He thought he was the invisible architect of a grand narrative about domination and criminal intelligence. He discovers that in the eyes of the system, he is just one more file, one more convict, an inmate number sent to El Dorado Correctional Facility with 10 life sentences. The law prevents him from being executed, not out of pity, but because the statutes changed too late. He will therefore remain alive, locked up, deprived of the only power that defined him, choosing whose life he takes, when, and how. His family, which he considered an integral part of his camouflage, turns away. Paula files for divorce. His children cut off all contact. His church issues statements to distance itself from him. Where he imagined that a part of him would remain in those places, that people would talk for a long time about that strict deacon, there remains only a hole of silence, discomfort, glances that turn away when his name is spoken. At the back of his cell, with years ahead of him, he has nothing left but his memories, his controlled exchanges with those who study him, his filtered letters. What he finally discovers is the actual smallness of what he built. He did not shape a legend. He mostly left behind 10 destroyed lives, shattered families, a traumatized city, and a handful of police tools sharpened a bit better. The question that remains hanging, heavier than all his rationalizations, is this. How many men who believe themselves ordinary silently share some part of the emptiness that led him there, without anyone seeing it before it is too late? On a small street in Park City, a neatly trimmed hedge borders a beige house with closed shutters. The "No Trespassing" sign hangs slightly, twisted by the cool wind. A swing creaks softly in a neighboring yard, rope worn, plastic seat faded. In the distance, you can hear the sharp smack of a ball on the pavement, then footsteps moving away.